Hello in-flighters, and welcome back to another episode of Becoming a Flight Attendant. Today we are going to be covering Reserve Flight Attendant. My name is Will, Orlando-based flight attendant living in Chicago, and I started this series with the intention of helping you transition into the aviation world as a flight attendant. A reserve flight attendant is an on-call flight attendant, which translates into working whenever the airline needs you. Now, hear me out. All airlines have different reserve systems, and I know this because I have a lot of friends at different airlines, and I know for a fact that they are different. However, the purpose of a reserve flight attendant, regardless of how different these systems are, is to make sure that there's a flight attendant on call, ready to go to avoid service disruption. Some reserve systems will have you on call for 24 hours for a set amount of days. These set amount of days are also known as blocks. So whenever we reference a reserve block, we're talking about a consecutive amount of days where you will be on call. The airline I work for has a reserve system where you will be on call for 12 hours, and you get to pick if you want to be Reserve A, which starts at 12:01 a.m. up until 1 p.m. the next morning, and then you have Reserve B, which starts at 11 a.m. and you are done at 11:59 p.m. When you are on call, you have to be ready. And when I say you have to be ready, you have to have your bags packed. You can't be strolling around your city. You can't be doing grocery shopping unless you have your bags in your car and you can just go straight to the airport. But the thing is that when the airline calls you, they will give you a period of time where you actually have to get to the airport to report to your trip. I said trip, but it could also be any other assignments, maybe airport standby or other things like that. Now you're probably wondering, how much time do I have to get to the airport? Well, it really depends. I know for my airline, you typically have a 2-hour call out before you have to report to the airport for your assignment. However, we do have certain bases that are considered dual bases, meaning that we have 2 major airports in the same city. When this is the case, the airline has to give you a 3-hour call out. So that gives you an extra hour to get to the airport because, again, they could really send you to any. Now, I don't know if there are other airlines out there with a dual base. If you guys do know of other airlines that do, go ahead and comment those below. I'm interested in knowing if there are other airlines with dual bases. Some of the instances where you'll probably get called to work is if someone drops their trip last minute. If someone does have an emergency and they don't make their trip, then you'll most likely just get called to work that trip for them. But with reserve also comes airport standby. And I think it's important we talk about airport standby. Hear me out. I don't know exactly how crew scheduling decides this person is going to get airport standby today, but all I know is that at least for my airline, crew scheduling cannot assign me airport standby more than 5 times in 1 month. 5 times doing airport standby? That's a lot, my friends, and I've done it. But say the crew scheduling picked your name and said, hey, so-and-so is going to do airport standby. Crew scheduler is going to call you and tell you, hey, you have airport standby assignment and you're going to sit at the airport for X amount of hours. During that period of time, you're honestly just sitting around waiting to get called, to get used. You can get called for Preboard, which is when a flight attendant is running late and they are going to make the trip, but they need someone to be in their position so that they can board this flight. That's what Preboard is. You're just sitting there to do whatever it is that they need you to do. Now, when you have airport standby, say that you get used and you go on with your life and your little trip and hope that it's a good one. If you don't get used during airport standby, then you will get released and go home. When you have reserve blocks, so the days that you will be on call, you have to be at your base. And it's not like, okay, I got released today and now I get to go home. No, you have assignment the next day. You have to stay at your base before you can actually get released into your days off. That's the only time that you can leave your base. Now, it is very important to understand that when you are on reserve and you are a commuter, meaning that you do not live where you are based, you are responsible to find where you're going to live. These places are called crash pads, where you share a space with a lot of different flight attendants and you use that space to basically just wait around until you get called for work. Crash pads are not provided by the airline. The airline will not give you an expense to pay for that. I always tell people, try to look for a base where you know you have family. If you have family in the area, it's gonna make your life so much easier because you probably don't even have to look for a crash pad. I had a pleasant experience on my crash pad because I only had to share a room with 1 person, but I do hear of crash pads where you share the room or the property with like 20 other people. Now you're wondering, if I'm a reserve and then I don't work, do I get paid? I don't want to get you confused, but I will tell you that airlines do pay reserves certain hours that are guaranteed every month, regardless of what you work. Let's use a random number. So say that the airline is going to pay you 80 hours every month, regardless of the hours that you work. That's exactly what you're going to get paid. 80 hours. Unless they call you so much that you fly over your 80 hours. Now say that you go over your guaranteed pay. Now the airline has to pay you the 80 hours on top of whatever you went over. My advice to you is just familiarize yourself with your reserve system in a way that you don't spend a lot of time sitting at home waiting to get called. We had something that's called aggressive bidding, which is first come, first serve, meaning that, you know, everybody can bid for the same trip, but the first person that did it is going to get it. Oftentimes I flew a lot aggressive bidding, which was good because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to fly. I want to get experience. I want to get myself out there. So please familiarize yourself with the reserve system at your airline. Find out if you can self-assign trips, if you can trade with other people, if you can drop a reserve shift and, you know, swap that for trips. There are ways for you not to sit around at home and potentially just go over your guaranteed pay, which I know for me, I only went over my guaranteed pay probably like 2 or 3 times. I spent almost a year and a half as a reserve flight attendant, and now it is time for me to give you my opinion of what I really think about being on reserve. Depending on the size of the airline that you go and work for, you will probably work a lot or you will work very minimum. Your reserve pay, regardless of the airline you work for, is not the greatest. You're making the bare minimum, but let me tell you, as time goes by, it does get better. You will get raises, and you will probably find side gigs that are going to work for you and fit your schedule. So don't get discouraged, but it is something that you're going to face. So I want you to be very realistic about it, okay? I hope that you learned something new about being a reserve flight attendant. If you do have any other questions, go ahead and drop those in the comments. I will make sure that I answer those for you. If you have any other suggestions of things that you would like for me to talk about, go ahead and drop those as well. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and I will see you next time for another episode.